Hey folks, I'm attorney Roger Foley, just driving home after work. Actually got to run some errands, but wanted to talk to you a little bit today about a recent incident. Kind of let you have an idea of what we deal with. Things just rarely go right. And why do I say that? Is because the more hands you have on a case, the more hands you have on anything in life, right? The more opinions that come with it. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about a case that recently occurred. I'd gone to court on a matter. I'm not going to go into jurisdiction or names or anything like that, but just kind of so you have an idea. And this individual was arrested for possession of heroin, possession of drug paraphernalia, and also a separate charge, but it was weird. The police wrote it up as two separate cases, was a reckless driving, careless driving, and then numerous tickets. Tickets for like tint, seatbelt, registration, license, all kinds of things. Well, client has a drug addiction. He's apparently in his car in a parking lot, decides to use heroin. And for whatever reason, maybe the car wasn't in park, or it was in neutral, the car rolled. The car rolled approximately, I don't know, let's say 20 feet into some hedges and a light pole. I'm hired on the possession case. Don't know anything about the second case, the reckless driving. So we end up receiving a bunch of discovery, which is all the information that the state has on the case. There's no information, discovery on the reckless driving. I'm trying to figure it out because my police report basically says that the individual was found in his vehicle, passed out, looked like under the influence, and was ultimately taken to the hospital. Can't figure out where the reckless driving comes from, so go to court date after court date after court date. Probably went to court 3 to 4 times to figure that out. Ultimately, the state said we're no prosing it, meaning we're dismissing those counts because we don't even know where that comes from. And I ultimately transferred the case to a division that handles drug court. I go to have a hearing. Now, in order to do that, you have to get permission from the supervisor to kind of get it into drug court, or actually the line prosecutor has to agree. So ultimately they agreed. It's a drug court case. Let's move the case to drug court. So I'm thinking, okay, well, drug court's pretty easy. I get my client enrolled. I set him up. I explain the parameters of it. And he or she ultimately goes through a year of rehabilitation. And if they stay clean from drugs, they don't get arrested. They follow all their group meetings. They don't test positive any longer. Then the case, after 1 year, is ultimately dismissed, and then the client can move on and seal their record. Great. Well, once I get the case from the main courthouse, well, I shouldn't say the main courthouse. Once I get it from the main courtroom, right, where it's initially filed, to drug court, I now encounter another prosecutor. When I go in, now the case gets delayed a little bit of time for whatever reason, the clerk of court, the judge's schedule. I go into court, and the prosecutor says, yeah, I can't let you in drug court unless the restitution matter is handled. So, of course, my mind is, what restitution matter? Again, in the drug charge, there's absolutely no information about an accident. There's no information. Now, I know that all of these things should have been put together, but the state attorney's office ultimately made a decision to dismiss the other charge, the reckless driving. I don't know how you can reckless drive if your car rolls at 1 mile per hour into some hedges and pull, but whatever. Maybe there's some restitution, maybe the pole's scratched, maybe you have to replant the hedges, whatever it may be. So, says I can't do that. So I explained to the judge, respectfully, Judge, all due respect to the court, I don't think the court has jurisdiction. The matter that pertains to the accident, that case has been dismissed by the state, so there's no jurisdiction of the court. This case is separate and apart, and as you see, there's no information about my client hitting a pole. There's no crash report. There's none of that. So whoever it was in the state attorney's office made a strategic decision for whatever reason, not me to second guess, but they made a decision to dismiss the the traffic criminal, the reckless driving and the careless driving or whatever it was, the accident. And they didn't combine it with the possession of heroin. So I don't believe the court has jurisdiction. However, my client is not a bad guy. If he hurt the pole, if he hurt the hedges, he'd be happy to repair them, but I don't want to delay his drug court and the transfer of his case to drug court so he can get treatment. He's already started, he's already gotten some treatment on his own and what have you, but there's a program that the court set up back in, I think, 1989, 1990, the drug court program, and I want him to get the treatment so it can help him to overcome his addiction. Of course, the state prosecutor goes, Judge, there's something called the victim's right that's in the Florida Constitution. I'm going, okay. We don't have a victim. We have a hedge. Obviously, the hedge belongs to someone. The pole possibly belongs to somebody. But the case has been pending for 4 or 5 months, and no one's done anything. So the traffic tickets, Judge, again, I don't even think that the court has jurisdiction, but my client's not trying to scam out if he injured the bushes or the bushes need to be replaced or if he scratched the pole, he's willing to pay for it. So the judge says, I agree with Mr. Foley. We're gonna reset it next week. We're gonna get the individual into drug court. Great. Week goes by. I show up at drug court. It's a different judge. It's a different prosecutor. Now it's a supervisor prosecutor. So I go, okay. I go to explain to the prosecutor because immediately upon entering the courtroom, she goes, "Oh, Mr. Folio, you have this case yet?" Well, I'm not agreeing to drug court until this matter's resolved. And I go, well, the matter's already been resolved last week, but I understand she wasn't there, so I let her go through her spiel and explain to me why she was objecting and what the issue was. Then, kindly and softly and gently, because I'm not trying to step on any toes unless I need to step on somebody's toes, I explained to her that the issue had already been adjudicated. It had already been decided by the court. I had argued this motion a week ago, and the judge, over the state's objection, had said, you can go to drug court, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we'll handle the restitution. I agree with you, Mr. Foley. I don't think I have jurisdiction, but perhaps I can take jurisdiction out of the traffic tickets, and when the traffic tickets are heard, which I'll just bring back to the regular, county court, I'll address it then. Judge, I don't think there's any damage, but no problem. So I explained this to this new prosecutor. Well, not new prosecutor, the supervisor prosecutor, who then has an attitude and starts telling me, well, I sent a letter and I haven't heard back and I can't find a phone number. And you could be doing this, or your client could be doing this. And now she's just starting to irritate me, quite frankly. I'm being kind to her. I'm explaining the situation. I'm not trying to step on toes. It's not really something to argue over because it's already been decided. I'm just sort of explaining to her what had occurred. She goes, well, you can't do it without my agreement, without my paperwork. And she just starts being a hard ass. And then she throws in, I don't know, maybe do I look young? I don't think I look that young. But she's like, I got, 30 years experience and da da da. I go, well, now that you're going to throw out your experience and your level of competency as, sort of accrediting yourself, now I'm going to attack those things because I'm looking at you going, well, you had the case for 5 months and you couldn't pick up a phone call and figure out a simple restitution matter. So me and this woman sort of start, bickering back and forth. The court hasn't started yet, but she says a little comment, so I amp it up a little bit. She says another one, and I go a little higher, and then she goes a little higher. And I go, listen, I don't know what to say to you, but I can address it with the judge. I go, you have your perspective, I have my perspective, but my understanding is the issue's already been judged, so I don't know why we're arguing about it, and I understand that you weren't there, but I didn't bring a copy of the transcript to court with me because, quite frankly, the judge told me next week we'll get him in drug court. So the judge takes the stand, And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Foley, how you doing?" And I start to explain, what the situation is. And you could see that he's getting irritated. Now, I don't know if he's irritated with me. I don't know if he's irritated with the state. But he really starts to get irritated. He goes, "Listen, I don't know why I'm getting in the middle of this." Now, I could have said, well, because you're the judge and you're supposed to be the referee of these things and make the final ruling. But I didn't want to piss him off because I think he was on my side. But he goes, "Mr. Foley, if I agree with you, then, it's you. Then I'm going to hear it from the state. And if I agree with the state, then I'm going to hear it from you. And, I don't know why this matters in front of me in the first place. It wasn't my case." So he looks at the prosecutor, and the prosecutor makes their victim's rights argument. And he goes, "Look, is the other judge here in the courthouse? Like, isn't that judge here? And why don't we just send it right back to that judge and that prosecutor who handled it, since Mr. Foley's saying it was already adjudicated and we have the answer?" So the judge gets up. I've never seen this in my 12 years. He gets up and he goes, "Bailiff, with me." And the bailiff walks with him, escorts him. He walks right out. He goes, "State, get your file and bring it to the other court." And he just gets up right in the middle of court, and you could tell he's upset. And he said to me, "Mr. Foley, look, I'm not upset with you. I don't know why I'm having to make this, this monumental decision. It's not even my case." I go, I don't know why either, Judge. Now you understand how I feel. So he gets up, literally walks down the hallway, goes to the other courtroom, walks past the bailiff, goes, "Where's the other judge?" Walks in and like throws the things like, "It's your case, your issue, your problem, you deal with it." Made me laugh. The judge shortly thereafter takes the bench, calls my case. "Mr. Foley, yes, Judge, we were here a week ago. You made a final decision." She goes, "I know I did." And then the other prosecutor gets up and goes, "Judge, well, that prosecutor is my boss, and now my prosecutor, my boss says I have to object." Now, the whole point of going into a drug court program is to get help with your drug addiction. You don't want someone who's got a drug addiction to be out and about with the temptation of taking drugs, because when take drugs, you have safety issues, right? You have other criminal issues. We're trying to get that person help. However, the smaller pawn, right, the lower level prosecutor can't do anything because the supervisor says, "Do it this way." So the judge hears me out, and I go, "Judge, we went all through this. There was argument last week. You made a decision. You can't." And she goes, "Exactly." So the state said, "We're objecting," and this and that. She goes, "Well, fine. I will do it. It's basically a plea to the court, and I'll get the case transferred into drug court, and we'll go through with the process." The judge then tells me to go back to the prosecutor, the supervisor, who now does not like me, because I have a big mouth, and I'm not going to just go, "Oh, okay, oh, okay, oh, okay. Oh, you've been an attorney for 30 years. I should bow to you. Oh, okay." No, because I'm a guy that talks back. I mean, I killed with kindness as long as I could until she was just so obnoxious that I had to just start stomping her like a bug, metaphorically. Obviously, I didn't stomp anyone in the courtroom, guys. But so the judge tells me, "Go over there and talk to this woman." Yeah, Judge, easier said than done. She looks at me before I say anything. She goes, "Deputy, escort Mr. Foley." Because we all know this supervisor's personality is so aggressive, and I've never even met the person. Sends the deputy. The deputy says to me, "Mr. Foley, hang back 5 feet. Let me talk to her." The deputy relays what the judge said, and the prosecutor goes, "I'm not signing it. I'm not signing it. She needs my signature. I'm not signing it." Which is really like in contempt of court. She's failing to follow an order. Now, she has a right. She can object. So the bailiff says, "Hand me the paperwork. Even though you're not going to sign it, I'll relay the message, give it to the judge." Guys, there's processes. Now, everyone doesn't agree with the drug court program, but I think everybody in society agrees, right, that if someone has a drug problem, that you should at least try to offer them some help. That's what the program's, put in place for. So even if you disagree with it, that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is the stupidity that we have to deal with, the red tape, the bureaucracy that you hear about in government. It is unbelievable that I spent 2 hours today on this one hearing that normally would take 5 minutes because a supervisor with 30 years of experience as a trained lawyer, apparently knows everything, didn't know anything, was ultimately slammed down by the judge because the judge said, no, I've already adjudicated this. It's already decided. Nice. Make your objection. But you don't even have jurisdiction over it, so why are you making this stupid argument? That lady's going to be mad. I'm going to have to deal with that lady when I handle other cases, and she happens to be assigned as the prosecutor. And for the next year or two, there'll be tension. I'll go in and kill with kindness, try to forget about it. Guaranteed, there will be some animosity. She'll be like, oh, this guy again. And she'll give me the attitude. We'll have to battle. And it's unnecessary. We're talking about some bushes and a lamb. We could have reserved to restitution, meaning the judge could have said, well, we're going to reserve to restitution when you get a bill, when you have an alleged victim. You don't have a victim. You have a bush. You have a pole. We don't know who owns them. You have to figure all that out. You could have done that for the last 5 months, but since you haven't, and I've ordered you to do that, when you find that out, maybe we can handle it on the separate case. A big mess for nothing. I got to tell you, there was some fun. I did have a smile on my face, a big smile on my face at the end of it, because I can't stand bureaucracy and people yielding power that shouldn't have power. Just like I argue with police officers that have too much power and they were bullied in high school. Same kind of thing. You have prosecutors that have no idea of the real world. Look, the vast majority of prosecutors are really great people. And you've only heard me say positive things, but every once in a while, you just get a dumbass. I mean, just a straight dumbass. And the worst combination is a dumbass with power. When they have power, it goes to their head, and it's like log jamming the system for no reason. Anyway, I'm blabbering on, but I just wanted to share with you this recent story because it irked me, but yet it made me smile because it is nice that the way the mechanisms that are in place, that a judge, although we've talked about our good judges and bad judge, this judge saw it. The second judge went, well, why am I dealing with this? This isn't even my problem. I'm just doing a favor today. Go back to the other judge, and we did, and that judge took a stand, stayed with her previous ruling, and did the right thing. And now the client's going to be in the drug court program, hopefully immediately getting the help that he needs and the treatment, so he can do better in life and be more productive. So I'm attorney Roger P. Foley, talking about bureaucracy, dumb people with power who are dumb, and the combination thereof. Thanks for listening.